sunny looking. Yep. Is that the word I was looking for?
Not like us, pale green. You know?
No, we need to go on holiday next.
Giveaways back on.
Yes, so the giveaway is back on. That was all anyone cared about, really, was the fact that we were doing a giveaway.
Well, Foteini came back, brought some presents to give away.
We've actually got a lovely Nikon 24-70 f2.8 tumbler, not a lens, that we are giving away today. I failed to I did a really bad job of opening this last time. This one's unopened, but it is in there. So we have a challenge for you today if you would like to win this at the end of the live stream. Today's live stream is all about film. So is there an ad? Are you listening to an ad?
It's an ad on our stream.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Automatically.
So if you would like to win that, then you need to put I shoot film because. If you don't shoot film, just make it up.
It's not a stream for you.
If you don't shoot film, then maybe we can change that by the end of the stream. But if you do shoot film, then we would love to know why you still shoot film.
Why do you shoot film?
I think it's a great topic, actually.
I think so.
And honestly, after I posted something on Instagram yesterday, and the amount of comments and excitement it was actually a medium format shot, but it was like, I want to shoot film, I love it, just because the colors and
and the warmth.
And the feeling,
you know.
the emotion that you get from.
Can you feel the heat from this box of film that we have here?
Yes, I can. This is mine, in fact. I'm taking this home and I'm going to be shooting it. If we get some sun in a couple of weeks, then... staycation.
That's the one?
That's the one. Portrait's not included. Yeah. I paid a lot of money for that.
Is Portrait 160, is it the right choice for England?
No, I usually shoot with 400, but
okay.
I have 160. No, I have one 400 and one 160 that I will be getting, but the 400 is downstairs. Anyway, look, immediate answers. Brilliant. So our wonderful producer will be taking your names if you enter that competition, and we'll draw at the end. I have to say a little thank you to quite a few people. The Coffee Fund is always open, both on PayPal and Super Chat, which is down there. It's below Con. Yeah, it's below Con.
It's below me.
Or if you're on desktop, it's actually down there. And on our PayPal honor roll, if you like, those who have contributed to the Coffee Fund via PayPal this week, we have, sorry if I say your name wrong, Jupe Schaefer, Michael George, Ian Willard, Thomas Woschik, is that right?
I think Woschik, yeah.
Woschik, Stephen Lilly, Roy Bixby, and Robert Morse. Thank you very much for your contributions to Coffee Fund.
Much.
Super appreciated. It is sunny, then grey, then sunny, then grey, but we will be getting a coffee later because we will have earned it by the end of this.
The weather doesn't affect our coffee consumption, isn't it?
No, it doesn't. It's either iced or warm, depending on what the weather's doing. So first up, we are going to talk about film also for people who don't yet or haven't been brought up shooting film, because actually, believe it or not, there is an entire generation that learned photography on digital cameras and not on film at all.
Is that the kids?
It's the kids. It's the Gen X, is it? Gen X?
I don't know which one.
Yeah, I think it's Gen.
Sure?
Or is it Gen Z? No, Gen Z are still the young ones. They're the ones that are... I think
actually, there was a book, Generation X, so I think it was based on 80s or 90s, right?
Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, whatever the generation is that didn't shoot film.
We are old.
We are older than them. And I certainly learned on a film camera, although mine was a point and shoot Kodak that I had as a kid. What was your first film camera?
I had a Zenith, my father's Zenith.
Oh, wow.
And it's actually somewhere in my attic here in England. Yeah.
Maybe you should dig it out one day.
I know, the shutter is broken.
Oh.
And I tried a couple of workshops in England. Can you service a Zenith? And they said, no, we can't.
Oh,
so
shame.
The search continues. If you can recommend a good workshop to service Zenith, let me know in the comments.
Yes, absolutely. Synthetic Color says it's Gen Z. Thank you. Snowflake.
Shots fired.
Yeah, exactly. No, but we would love to kind of introduce a whole new generation to film photography as well. And I think sometimes people find it a bit daunting. So if you haven't been shooting film for a while or shot film before, then this stream might be of interest to you potentially. First up, let's talk about formats.
Formats.
That was the first thing we were going to talk about.
Well, if you look at today's format, so we're going to skip like half-size films and 16 millimeters and all that.
Sure.
Or you can still probably find 16 millimeter film stock and shoot video with it. But it's probably the smallest format nowadays that's easily accessible is the 35 millimeter film, which comes in a pack of, I think, 12 frames, 24 and 36 frames per roll of film.
I have never shot a 12 frame roll of film before, actually. Is there a 12?
Well, it's not good value for money, I would say.
No, it's not. I've got some 24.
24s, yeah, were the common, but I think they had used to have 12. And also, in black and white, you could buy, I think it's 35 meters.
More expensive to shoot film in the long run, I would say. But the bulk loaders, we have this great, I think it's, what do we have downstairs? A 250 film back?
Yes.
For an F2.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that would shoot 250 exposure. So you would just roll up just long canisters of into that, and then you would shoot continuously. I can't remember how many frames per second it was, but it was a lot for sports. It was the sports and photojournalist kind of setup.
Because it can shoot at quite high frame rate, isn't it?
120 film as opposed to 120 millimeter film. 120 film is usually 10 shots unless you have a camera.
Depends. So there's different type of medium format film.
Yes,
so
yes,
you've
it's true.
got 645, which is the smallest format, and those you can get probably like something like Mamiya had a lot of cameras.
That's right.
I think Mamiya 1000 or Mamiya 645. Then you would have 6x6, which is Hasselblad is quite known for that, but also other brands have this.
Are you on the Wi-Fi? Sorry, just to check.
Not anymore.
Okay, good.
And then you have obviously 6x7,
Yes.
which cameras like Mamiya RZ or Mamiya 7 would shoot, which is the largest one. And you also have like 6x9.
Right.
And also you can go to 6x12 and 6x17 if you could get a panoramic medium format camera as well. So, but you got 10 shots per roll, 120 film if you're shooting 6x7.
Which is what I have in my Pentax, but you've also got the option to shoot. You've got a little slider between 10 and 20, so you can shoot half. Yeah.
I don't have that.
Well, I've got a really ancient. Mine's the original Asahi Pentax 6x7, the one that actually says 6x7 on it, in the old school writing that doesn't have the mirror up function, which is
That
a great
looks
shame.
like Kiev camera.
Yeah, it does.
Actually, Kiev kind of copied it from Pentax.
I think so.
But,
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why we keep cutting out, but bear with us. It will buffer a little bit. I've kicked Con off the Wi-Fi now, so
That's true.
it should be.
Our
be fine.
fiber is it keeps on giving.
Yeah. Except it should be. I'm just gonna 1 second. Yeah, thank you. I'm just double checking that I'm also not on the Wi-Fi. There we go.
No, it should be fine.
It should be fine.
So anyway, you got medium format, so
Yes.
it's a step up. It's a little bit more expensive, and you get less shots per roll. So in terms of this, it's a more expensive way to shoot film. There are benefits of that, where if you do large prints, you probably would benefit from a larger format because physical area is larger. It will capture more details. The cameras can tend to get bigger and lenses become heavier, but also you get advantage in image quality, so you get bump on that as well.
Yeah.
But also, obviously, things like medium format is good for large prints.
Yeah, it is lovely. And although I haven't actually, I need to print a couple of my shots up now that I've had them. The process is very slow with film. This is the thing. With digital photography, I find it's like you take your pictures. At the end of the day, you look at them, or the end of the shoot, or whatever you're doing. You may or may not edit them, depending on what you do. And then if you like a couple of shots, you print them, I suppose. But I know fewer and fewer people seem to print their stuff these days. Whereas with film, I feel more inclined to print my shots. Like the last set of prints that I got actually done were 90% of them were stuff that I'd shot on film. And I think there were like 3 shots that I'd done on digital.
Well, I think the reason it's nice to, not just kind of check the image straight away after you've taken it, but kind of wait and see what's going to happen, because it brings a different kind of type of thinking when you're shooting the film, because obviously now we have memory cards that can shoot thousands and thousands of frames on them.
Yes.
When you're limited to, say, 36 frames, you really have to think about the image you're taking.
Yeah, you don't want to just waste it. And for each, particularly with medium format, for example, if you add up the cost of the film the developing and scanning, if you do that, then you're looking at 3 to 4 pounds a shot.
That's true. And back in the day, when the film was dead and everything was really cheap, so you could pick up a nice second-hand film camera,
Yeah.
then you would spend money on processing and developing the film
Yes.
and on the film itself.
Yeah.
So overall, you would get there if you shoot a lot of film to the price of a digital camera with a lens. Nowadays, the film cameras have gone up in price so much
Yes.
that effectively just half of the money you're going to spend on equipment is probably going to cost, like, if you're looking at medium format camera now, let's say my Mi RZ, you're looking at £1,500 on eBay, let's say £2,000 with a lens.
Holy moly.
Once you add the film and processing on top, you're looking at the price of a digital camera, and that's pretty much right at the beginning when you start to shoot film.
Wow. Andy said if you shoot digital only 36 frames, you'll experience film photography. I mean, yes, that is one way to do it, but it's a little bit different to be constrained.
So easy to cheat, isn't it?
It is easy to cheat. And also you can delete pictures, whereas you can't obviously do that with film. You've got everything, including the rubbish ones. And you got to wait to see whether or not you did a good job. Nick asks if we ever shoot transparency film. I've never shot transparency film, Nick. That was his staple, did you?
I shot which one was it? One of the Fuji ones about 3 weeks ago. I just got it developed. Came out really well, and the film was about 14 years old, and it was way expired.
Wow, that's cool. A few people mentioning about the different, not true medium format, but like how digital medium format isn't necessarily true medium format, things like that.
There is a true digital medium format, but it costs a lot more than the prices of the Fuji and Hasselblad's, those kind of slightly larger than full frame medium formats. Because if you look at Fuji GFX series and Hasselblad similar series, I forgot what they call them, it's the sensor size is 33 by 44. If you look at medium format starting at least 6 by 45, that means that the digital medium format is a lot smaller.
Right.
But if you look at phase one sensors, then they do, of course, 645 proper full-size sensors.
Yeah, interesting. Steve asks, says, I have some old technical pan expired January 2004. Anyone know if it can still be processed? It probably can, Steve. If you have a look on the Analog Wonderland website, there's actually a link on there of where to develop. And they recommend, I think, 3 or 4 different labs that specialize in different types of film. So do pop over there and have a little look because you might well be able to get it done. We will talk about developing a little bit later. Thank you very much to Vince for your contribution to the Coffee Fund, and also to Roy and Terry and Nick, who all contributed.
Thank you very much.
As we were talking, and I missed that somehow. Vince says...
We go buffering.
Yeah, Vince says transparency shooting was the longest wait. I used to be impatient when I shot with my little Kodak point and shoot, which I used to take to school with me, which you're not supposed to do. You definitely wouldn't be able to do it now, except people have phones in their pockets.
You mean like one-use cameras?
No. Yeah. I actually had I can't even remember which one it was. It was just a reloadable Kodak. And with the DMP place was next to the tube station. So I used to walk down there and have to come back home, wait for an hour or 2 hours. I think he charged a bit more if it was an hour. So I used to wait 2 hours and then go back and pick up my prints. And it was like a whole experience having to just wait for a couple of hours for my prints. And yet, obviously, there were people that waited a lot longer. Now, we wait sometimes longer if we're not doing it ourselves.
And some of the labs, I remember when I was in New York, and it was my first time I shot with my Mi 645. And there was one place where I shot black and white. I gave them the film to develop, and they did a contact sheet as well.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's not like when they just put everything in the machine and does everything.
Yeah.
No, they actually would hand print a contact sheet and would give you like A4 paper with all the frames in there.
Oh, I love that. I looked at getting a contact sheet from Metro Imaging. Metro Print is a London-based printer developer, but they usually Devon print for professionals and for sort of gallery standard. And the whole thing was just so expensive.
It's not cheap.
That I thought, you know what, for this roll of pictures that I took of my kids, probably, I could just get Snappy Snaps to do it.
I think they're good if you have an exhibition and so you need to print a high quality prints, then it's a good place to do.
Yes.
Or of course if you have a paid commercial
work, for sure. Or if you're going to be displaying, for example, if you're going to be displaying at a gallery or you're doing anything like that, then for sure it's well worth it. Jackie was pointing out that comparing the cost of film to digital printing. Digital printing, if you do it yourself, you have to buy a decent printer. You pay a lot for the ink and the paper. I don't know comparatively if it would be as expensive.
It's a difficult one because I have a A3 Plus printer and it's nice.
Look
but,
at you.
for like 10 years, so it's not exactly the latest printer, but it's really good. The Canon, the famous printer company?
Yes.
So they do really good printers. So I have one, and the problem is it's really difficult to get the colors right. So for any critical work, again, for exhibition or something like this, you would still go and print somewhere else. That's the thing. And while home printing is really nice, again, if it's some critical work, you need to color proof everything. So you shooting with your passport color checker, you calibrate your screen, then you calibrate your printer. So effectively you have a profile for the printer inks and for the paper as well.
Wow.
So it requires a lot of work. And then imagine if you go with a, let's say, third, party inks.
Yes.
Those are not the same colors.
No, they're
so
not.
their red is not the same. So suddenly you need to create a different profile, etc., etc. So if you want to do it properly, it becomes quite complicated.
Well, yes, it's true. And I think that's the case whether you're shooting digital or film, actually.
Exactly.
So Michael was on dog walking duties. It's fine, Michael, we forgive you. So a few people are talking about the storage of film. I mean, I remember when back in the day when Tony was here, I remember he gave me a bag of expired film, and I think I've still got 2 rolls left of some kind of Fuji color something which expired in 2002.
Expired film is all the rage on the internet. People are paying premium
Should I sell it?
to buy an expired film on eBay. It's amazing.
Yeah, so mine's been kept in the fridge. I had never been told to keep it in the freezer. I see some people do seem to keep it in the freezer. I don't know if that's the right thing or not. I can't comment on it.
It's been around. I tend to kind of keep mine in the fridge. But
I go fridge instead. And then I don't know how long you'd have to thaw it out for, but certainly you need to make sure that your film, particularly if you're shooting something sensitive like infrared film, it needs to acclimatize before you load it. So it's worth checking things
So a bit of microwave.
Shove it in the microwave. It'll look great. Don't do that. That was pure sarcasm.
There's some technical knowledge right there.
That's right. So, what's kind of interesting is that back in the day, as far as I know, Kodak used to include the cost of developing with the film. You don't have that anymore.
They would basically, there would be some sort of a label attached to it. So you just, send this with the label and they will just develop it for you.
And then you probably have to wait a couple of weeks. But it is definitely a nice idea.
That's true.
Talking
about film sizes as well, obviously we didn't mention large format.
Yes.
And that becomes a lot more expensive than even medium format. So you got 5x4 and you got 8x10.
Yeah.
So those are large format cameras. Again, they're quite expensive. You can buy now. Remember that brand Interspeed or something like this. They sell large format cameras for about £400-500, but they sold out and you have to wait for several months. But the film itself, each frame would cost you about something like £50-20, and that's just for the film sheet itself. So imagine you made a mistake when loading it.
Oopsie.
So that's just money thrown away.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of the things that if you're into that, you can definitely do that.
Yeah, exactly. Rebecca says, I think digital is cheaper even if you do the same amount of exposures, between film and digital.
It depends how often you shoot. It depends how cheap you can get your film equipment. That's the thing. With the current on eBay, a lot of cameras gone up in price quite significantly.
They have.
I paid about £400 for my Mamiya RZ at the time. That would be it would be about 10 years ago.
Right.
The same setup is about 2,000 plus at the moment. Good investment.
But when you think about it, I think now shooting film has become almost more of a luxury item. It's like
yes and no, because
I think so, yes.
It's one of those things I would say for professional photographers. It becomes another way of making your work to stand out.
Okay.
So,
I can see that.
Film definitely has a different look, and large format shooting.
Yeah.
Again, shooting 6x7 digitally is unaffordable for many people because, again, if you're talking about GFX system by Fuji or Hasselblad, they are not really a medium format. So they're kind of smallish medium format.
Yeah.
So that gives you a completely different look, even compared to, let's say, 35 millimeters. The colors are completely different as well. But of course, it requires a lot more work in terms of, developing and scanning it properly and retouching as well. But for professional photographers, it becomes a different way of stand out. But I don't think we would, when I talk professional photographers, I'm not talking event photographers or things like this. We're talking probably art, fashion,
beauty,
maybe advertisement, beauty, etc.
Right.
Yeah.
And also sort of celeb photography now. I don't know what you class that as. It's not lifestyle, it's something else. But I've found that more and more photographers who shoot A-list professionally, and that's what they do. And it is kind of advertising, but not only. Are leaning towards film, medium format, large format, because they, as you say, they want to look different. They want that different look.
Quite famous, let's say, photographers like Annie Leibovitz. She shoots digitally, but she can afford the camera that would cost £20,000-30,000.
Yeah. So
that's a different thing. It's not exactly the same as, let's say, again, GFX or Hasselblad system.
Yeah. Exactly. Icon sees Mr. No says there's still a shelf in my deep freezer dedicated to film. The oldest film in there is from 1964 and still putting out good images.
Film and ice cream.
What's that? Yeah, I can't fix that.
No?
I can't do anything about it while I'm streaming, unfortunately.
We'll call the internet guy.
We'll call who are we with? Talk BT.
Bezos?
Someone.
No.
Why would he write our internet? Well, we'll do what we can. Unfortunately, I don't know how to fix the fact that we're a bit choppy while we're currently live streaming without stopping.
For our young viewers who don't know what film speed is, think about it as ISO on your digital camera.
Yeah. Film speed. Yeah, exactly. So when people say the speed of a digital camera or what ISO are you at, that is, there are equivalent terms in film. It is still its organization, ISO.
Is that what it is?
That is the benchmark for ISO. So technically, all should be about the same in terms of film speed, though, and what 100 ISO is in one film should be the same in terms of sensitivity in another film. That's basically how it works. Obviously, with digital cameras, they perform entirely differently at the same ISO, depending on the manufacturer, the sensor, the processor. There's a number of variables. But film speed, the most popular ones tend to be between sort of 160, 400, 800. The main problem with high-speed film, so 800 plus, is the sheer quantity of noise.
Yes. Well, in film, they call it grain.
Exactly. So digital terms, noise it's much nicer when it's grain.
But back in the day, in my days, so I remember right sunny day, they would say shoot ISO 100. Then a good day, but not that sunny, shoot 200. Want to be on the safe side? Go 400, a bit of everything. And then for the evening, shoot 800.
Right.
So the 1600 ISO, 3200 ISO film didn't exist at the time.
No, it didn't exist. Well, it probably did, but it was probably really expensive. Paul's just contributed to the broadband fund. Thank you, Paul. Can you check if we're not accidentally filming on 4K? Like if someone's
changed... filming on film. That's why it's so choppy. You see, so it's only 36 frames.
Just for today. It's not on... What on? Is it on 1080?
Well, we output it doesn't really matter because we output at 10...
Yes.
But then it goes here and
should be excellent connection.
Excellent. It looks extremely underexposed.
We are very underexposed. There we go.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Thank you for that brief intermission. I hope you got your cup of tea. We're still here. If you didn't get a cup of tea, then it's too late now. You're just going to have to stick with us.
I mean, you can go again, but probably will disappear for another 5 minutes.
I hope not.
Oh, and it's time. It was good to see you all.
It was great. Thank you very much for joining us this week. All right. Shall we talk about something else? I'm going to put my phone somewhere here so that it can connect to the internet. Right. So we talked about film speed, which is ISO.
That's right.
We did that, didn't we?
We did that, yes. I mean, you didn't see it, but while we were off, we talked a lot about that.
We did.
What we'd like to know is, what is your favorite film stock?
Yes, we
Is
would
it-
like to know that.
Yeah, is it color? Is it black and white? Is it portrait or Velvia or Ilford HP5 Plus?
So my favorite is this one, both in 120 and in 35 millimeter. That's Kodak Portra 160. But I will say that 400 is far more practical. And in
Yes.
fact, I don't really see a big difference between those two.
It's a subtle difference, but it is definitely there. I personally am over 400 person myself, and for outdoors 800, because I shoot a lot in the evening, kind of in the twilight.
The Twilight Zone.
Exactly, but 160 in studio is really good.
Yeah, I've not shot much black and white, to be honest, but I can see a huge number of people saying Ilford FP4. Ray Liu says Cinestill 800. It's a beautiful film. It's actually, as far
Yeah.
as I know, obviously Kodak Cine stock that's been rebranded, right?
I've yet to try it. I've read a lot about it, and
It's
it's definitely on my
great.
shopping list.
It's great.
And yes, someone's mentioned Ilford HP5. That's my gem.
There you go. And then Jonathan says Ektar, which is also very nice. I do like, I mean, Ektar 100, as I think it's called, is beautiful.
I like
It's-
Hectards.
Mhm.
I think they're
Egg
£1 on the market.
Egg tarts at the bakery
Yeah,
market.
it's a nice Portuguese. You know, actually in China they do a lot of egg tarts as well.
Do they?
Yeah.
So silly. And then Tri-X. Now, a lot of people have recommended to me, who are black and white studio photographers have recommended Tri-X to me.
Tri-X is great because it's got very fine grain. So if you do shoot a lot in the studio, you want to get the best possible and the cleanest image possible, definitely go for Tri-X. And again, larger format tend to produce less grain due to a larger negative compared to the 35mm format.
Yeah. We don't stock film at Grays. We don't develop film.
Not yet.
Not yet. Watch this space. But if you are in the UK, then you can get, there's a lovely sort of family-run business called Analog Wonderland, which is a very British company based in Buckinghamshire, where my dad's from. And it's cool. So Analog Wonderland, if you are a new customer, then I think you can get 5% off your first order.
Is it next to Buckingham Palace?
No, it's not.
No, okay.
Buckinghamshire.
Shire. Okay. So what's the
not that
5% code, by the way? Is it...
Well, if you're a new customer, then if you go onto their website, it automatically gives it to you if you sign up to their newsletter. But you can also use the Grays code, which is Grays_5. That gives you 5% off as well. Which
or I know Becky.
Or I know Becky. Becky's my mate. Yeah, no, that one doesn't work. Sorry. And I'm sure that for our non-British customers, you've probably got your kind of go-to places where you go for film. Please feel free to recommend them here. In terms of film, let's say, developing and...
Oh yeah, you had a first-hand experience the other day.
Very painful experience. So I got as a present, I think some of you will know, I got the lab box. Which is basically a daylight loading tank and developing tank all in one.
So if actually you don't need to be in a dark room to load up the film or have some sort of change in film cover or anything like that.
No, exactly. The downside to that, apart from it being quite expensive and quite fiddly,
It's like 180 quid or something, isn't it?
if you want both bits, yeah.
Well,
If you want
both.
the 120.
If you shoot film, you want both, yeah.
If you want 35mm and 120, then yeah. Another thing I will mention about Analog Wonderland quickly, because Martin said they're great. They do a film subscription box once a month where you get a variety of films.
Ah, it's like coffee subscription.
Yeah, but you don't know what you're getting. And then they have like a film of the month.
Just
and you
like
can
with
shoot
coffee.
it. Love it. Yes, exactly. So it's called the Wonder Box, and I think it's great. So in terms of developing myself, I tried the lab box with a few films. I did the 35mm. That seemed to be fairly straightforward, although I decided to challenge myself and develop C41, which obviously needs to be warmed up.
Ooh, C41. How was your temperature control? Can you tell me that?
I've got a meat temperature stick thing, right?
And you will maintain it throughout the processing.
Yes.
Wow.
So the first few rolls were actually quite good. The one that I really messed up, for want of a better word, was the 120, because actually if you load it ever so slightly incorrectly, then the film sticks to itself in the canister.
Oh, okay.
So that I need to attempt again one day.
Yeah, you like normally like on the old-fashioned, cassettes, you kind of have to push them in, and they kind of, it's like little spools.
Exactly.
they
So
don't connect
because this
together.
is a daylight loading tank, you don't do it
don't
that
do
way. You have to just make sure it feeds into the right bit, and then inside the tank you load it. Basically, it's very finicky.
That's true.
And I did it wrong. So anyway, but for the 35mm, it actually works quite well. The only downside I'd say to the lab box is that you can only do one film at a time, which is a bit of a slow process. So if you get one of those sort of more generic developing kits, and Wonderland sell them actually, you can develop usually like 5 rolls of film at the same time, which is much, if you're doing C41 where you have to have the temperature exact, it's much better if you know what you're doing to develop multiple rolls at the same time.
I think there's a partisan developing kit, and that comes with the bigger tubes, and you can load a few more cassettes in there, so you can effectively develop like 5 rolls of 35mm film and maybe 3 rolls of 120 at the same time. So yeah, if you're into bulk processing, that's probably a better choice.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
you need to be in completely blacked out darkroom.
Yeah, the Jackie says the multi-format lab box is not cheap and you can't get hold of it either. I actually managed to get mine without too much of a wait, and that was from Analog Wonderland. But do sign up for their notifications, because that was what I did, and that works.
People.
I know people. That worked for me. But yeah, I would say if you're fairly confident in loading film and you're happy to develop multiple rolls at the same time, then just go for a standard developing kit, because the lab box is great if you're only the occasional film shooter and you don't sort of save up lots of films to develop in one go.
Yes, so you see, for us, for lazy people, I mean, I used to develop my own film, and in the college we have like huge tanks with a developable stopper and water.
Yeah.
So you just load the whole thing in that bucket.
Yeah.
You got a little like a digital display, so completely pitch black, etc.
Yeah.
So that was fun. But nowadays, when I shoot film, I just send it off to the lab. Nice and easy. A week later, it comes in the post. Because if you think about it, if you need to develop your film, and obviously you need to dry it, and there used to be a drying cabinets that you would dry your film in, and it would be dust free, etc. You don't have that luxury at home. Again, I don't have a proper pitch black darkroom in my house.
No.
So, but if you think how much time you need to spend on this, and then how much time you would need to spend on scanning the thing and potentially retouching it. So if your scanner doesn't have ICE technology, or let's say for black and white, you don't have that.
I don't know what you're talking about
now. It all adds up. So in terms of for me, I personally prefer to send off to the lab, and obviously, once you try different labs, you know which one is the best.
Yes.
And then it comes back to it's all ready for scanning. You can just enjoy your time.
Exactly.
Taking more pictures.
It's always that kind of expense or cost versus time factor.
Yeah.
If you've got the time and you enjoy the process of doing it and you find it quite therapeutic, I think it's nice to develop your own film. And you also have that kind of luxury of being able to experiment with different sort of chemical recipes if you are shooting black and white, for example. C41 is very straightforward in respect of the chemicals are what they are. They have to be this temperature, this time.
Those juice bags, so funny.
Don't drink them.
No.
But with black and white film, it can be a little bit more varied.
Temperature control becomes very important.
With color.
Exactly.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. So if you enjoy that, then absolutely. I think if quite a few people back when we originally started doing these live streams said to me, oh, you've got to develop your own stuff. It's magical. It is, but it is also super stressful. I was so stressed after the first time because I just didn't know what I was going to do and how it was going to come out. I thought it was just going to ruin all my film. Randall, thank you very much, Randall, for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. Very much appreciated. Says, if you have direct internet connection, the stream is fine. Yeah, unfortunately, there's a number of reasons why we can't have direct Ethernet directly plugged into my laptop. But anyway, one of which being we don't have a proper studio for that. But question, when did you stop using film completely? Now...
Never.
No. I have always had a hand in film myself. Like I've always had a film camera of some description or another. I had an FM2N when I first started working here.
True. I mean, I had the withdrawal for about 5 years, I think. And after that, I just came back to it.
Yeah.
But I used to shoot a lot of film in the college. And then when I started to work here, I kind of went all digital.
Yes.
But then again, working here helps you, exposes you to all those nice things.
Yes.
And then you start to try them again and you come back to it. But obviously, I tend to enjoy those things as a kind of a leisure thing, enjoyable things. And obviously, you have a digital camera for commercial work.
Yeah.
And a lot of photographers nowadays, what they say is well, I would shoot digitally first to make sure I've got the shots. And then I take my camera out, let's say medium format camera, and then I'll, shoot it differently the way I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So, but that way you kind of cover yourself for any problems that may happen, let's say, because
Sure.
if one of those cameras packs up, or let's say the seal is gone, etc.,
Yeah.
you don't want to find out, let's say, a week later that's what happened. And if it's a commercial shoot, it's a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Bracketing is another thing, isn't it?
Bracketing is another thing. I remember speaking to a long time professional film photographer when I'd only been here for a few months, and he said, just bracket. That's the best thing to do. It says it on the instructions, or it says it in the box of film, one under, one over, one at what the meter says.
Unless you have 10 shots in a roll. And they
yikes.
count. That's the thing. And obviously, like one thing I've noticed, obviously, coming from digital to film, and we kind of now tend to overshoot things just to make sure that we've got the shot. Or 5 of those that are there.
Well, if it's like a paid job, then
exactly.
Yeah.
So obviously with film, you have to shoot less, and you have to really kind of make sure that you got the shot right.
Yeah.
So in terms of this, yes, of course, you shoot a lot less, but then once you start to break it as well, so you're overexposed, underexposed, then the 3 shots are already gone. You got 7 left, etc., etc.
Yeah, it is expensive. Raushi, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Photo says, "What's a fair price for an FM3A?" To be honest, these days they have shot up dramatically. I think I bought mine 7 years ago, and they were going for like £700 to £800. They go for way more than that now. So
yeah, here shouts out for everyone. If anyone wants to sell their Mamiya 7, give me a call.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking for a Pentax macro lens.
My budget's about £20, but that's fine.
Fiver.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian, for your contribution to the Wi-Fi fund. We need it now. It's now my 5G fund. Believe it or not, we haven't had. My phone is like a nuclear bomb, but at least we're on 5G. So now I did want to talk about Polaroid very quickly, because we were talking about different types of film.
It's all back now, isn't it?
Yeah, I had. You're going to laugh. I had a pink Polaroid camera when I was probably about 12.
Was it bubblegum pink?
No, it was like neon pink.
Okay.
And I looked, and they're worth about 200 quid now.
No.
They definitely weren't that much in 1999 or 2000. But anyway, it was just so much fun to be able to see your picture straight away. And then a few years ago, I bought myself one of the Fuji Instax cameras. But it's one of those kind of things that I fall out of love with quite quickly. I didn't keep it for very long.
You see, I don't really get the whole Polaroid thing personally. I guess maybe I'm not the age for that, appropriate for that. But I have my parents' Polaroid, like back in the day, because that was novelty. Obviously, you take a shot and 2 minutes later it's here. That was fun. But nowadays, I personally don't understand. It's just not my thing, but obviously,
No, but they have brought out Polaroid Go, which actually Ray was mentioning. It's really great for kids. It's a little, tiny, sort of hand-sized Polaroid camera.
I don't have kids.
I know. Come on, for
That's
Tilly.
why.
But actually...
For Tilly's medium format.
It's true. She's the perfect model.
Yeah.
But it is quite interesting if you are trying to get someone into photography and they don't want that weight and maybe the sort of technicalities of shooting film, then actually a Polaroid is quite a nice way to look at it. Obviously, we don't stock any of these things. It's just more of a curiosity and worth mentioning, I think. Avner asked if there was a hybrid camera, like film and digital. There are digital backs for some film cameras.
Yeah, there used to be film cameras with digital backs. I think Leica, one of those, Leica ours, they had one of those.
Yeah.
One very good, I think. They had some issues with it. Was it D1? No, was it F6? Was prototyped to be a digital camera or something like this?
Yeah, I think they prototyped a digital back for it. I have seen some third party on like Etsy somewhere, digital backs for the FM2N.
That's true. They were on Kickstarter as well at some point.
Yeah, which I like the idea of, but no, it hasn't kind of taken off, let's say. And I think that it's probably easier now to find an affordable digital camera and just run it alongside a film camera. That's my take on it anyway. So let's just talk about film cameras a little bit.
Okay.
Because obviously Nikon never made medium format. They never made large format. They made lenses, large format lenses, didn't they?
Yes.
But they didn't make cameras per se.
There is a Japanese camera with a German name, Plaubel. I could be saying it incorrectly, but it's
Sure.
got a Nikon lens and a 6x7 point and shoot camera.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. I think it's got either 28 or 35-8 lens on it. Nikon lens.
Isn't that interesting? I didn't know that. Because, I mean, you've got plenty of point and shoot sort of medium format cameras like the Holgers and the things like that, which are kind of toy cameras.
That's true.
If
They're
you
like £30 on the internet.
Yeah, you can get them pretty cheaply. But in terms of Nikon, I mean, someone was mentioning earlier, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten who it was talking about the fact that, I think it was Dixon actually said, you know, my F90X, I can't sell, but people will give me loads of money for my F4S. There were certain film cameras that really withstood the test of time. Obviously, they were more expensive when they first came out. They were professional bodies, but also simple things like being able to get parts for them and stuff like that. That kind of meant certain bodies maintained their longevity, let's call it.
That's true. Generally, manual focus bodies.
Yeah.
They tend to have a longer shelf life just because parts are still available, and because they're all mechanical mostly, they're still serviceable compared to more later stuff that's got a lot more electronics in them. And because parts are no longer available, and they're not easy to fix because you can't just make an electronic part by yourself.
No.
You know, so those unfortunately are obsolete nowadays because you just can't get the parts.
No, exactly. And I mean, we did have obviously F801s, F90s, F80s that often had that sticky back problem, which we've talked about before.
I think in States they were N90 and
That's
808
right.
or something like
so
this.
there was like that region differentiation there. And I do think that those little cameras are great if you can find a really nice working one. Actually fantastic, well worth a play with, and they tend to be super cheap now secondhand. Whereas JP was saying the Plaubel Machina 6x7
That's the one, yes.
goes for over $2,000.
Here we go.
Yeah.
I saw one on eBay for about £700. So, you know,
Snap it
try
up.
in UK. Try in UK.
And Icon Sees Mr. No says there's a company called I'm Back that makes digital backs that you can retrofit to any old film cameras.
I am back.
I love that. So F75, F80 and F90X are selling very well in the States due to the low price between $50 and $100. That's the Will Rogers saying that.
But this is the point actually I want to make, that it doesn't matter what Nikon film camera you have. So you could buy one probably for $5, let's say one of those FGs or something, FG20 or something like this. Or you can buy a mint condition Nikon F. As long as you put the same lens on it and take a shot, if it's not, let's say, sports or wildlife, so you don't need autofocus,
Yeah.
then the image quality is going to be the same.
Yeah.
Because effectively, the image quality will depend on the lens you put on it.
And the film stock.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's more about, I'd say, features and convenience. And if you want a built-in meter, if you don't want a built-in meter, if you buy, we've mentioned this before, but if you buy one of those old film cameras, an old Nikon F Photomic or F2, F2A, F2SB, etc., the light meters aren't 100% accurate. No. They're like 50 years old now, so or 60 in the case of the Nikon F. So an external light meter is a good idea. I use an app called Lux, which is a light meter app.
Okay.
And I've compared that with my little Western Euromaster 2.
Okay, that's a really old one, isn't it?
I know, it's an ancient one. And the readings come out the same. So I pretty much agree with the Lux app.
You know, I've never tried those iPhone apps.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, it just
seems
feels
so
wrong
weird.
On so many levels.
I know.
Like I'm probably wrong on this one, but I can't put myself into using them. But I've got a Sekonic, just a basic Sekonic light meter. I think it's called L308, and it's been with me for like 20 years, and it does a really good job. And in terms of this, of course, with the more expensive cameras and later cameras, you buy in the convenience of aperture priority mode or metering system and things like this. But they're fixable. You get a light meter, you can just measure it, and obviously, you know, you got different light meters as well.
Yeah.
So, again, the way you would shoot film with those cameras could depend as well on the film stock. So, in terms of this, it's generally a lot easier, let's say, to overexpose your film stock and still get the details comparing to underexposing it like we do in digital, because film doesn't have as many details in the shadow areas compared to the highlights, while it's opposite in digital.
Yes.
But light meter in this case helps quite a bit because you can then use a spot metering and measure for certain things. Obviously, if you measuring for highlights, your image is going to be darker. For midtones, it's slightly brighter, and for shadows, it's going to be a lot brighter. But at the same time, it's not going to overexpose your skies completely.
Yes, exactly. And as Paul points out, you can use the Sunny 16 rule if you don't have an external light meter. So just to explain what that is, the concept is if it is a sunny day, so bright and sunny outside, you would shoot at f16 and then your shutter speed would match your film speed. So if your film speed is 100, then you would shoot at 100th of a second. Obviously, you kind of have to get within the area. If you're shooting with 160 and your camera goes from 125th to 250, as they often do in shutter speed, then you have to kind of, I'd say, go 125th. And there are actually different charts on the web. If you want like a cheat sheet, for example, if you just type in Sunny 16 on Google, you'll get all these cheat sheets that you can print out and keep in your pocket. Because if it's cloudy, you might need to shoot slightly wider open. If it's sort of dusk dawn, I think they recommend f8, things like that. So there are other methods you can use. You don't have to just use a light meter.
Yeah, and if you're in England, buy 1600 ISO film, and you should be absolutely fine.
Exactly. Well, no, I would say 800.
Yeah. To be on the safe side.
800. So you've got a bit of, and a lot of film has different kind of latitudes. Some are more forgiving than others.
Well, that's what they call the light retro. Blah, 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 blah. When you're shooting in the dark,
yes,
long exposures,
yes,
after a certain period of time,
yes,
you need to add time for the longer exposure.
What's the rule?
Reciprocity.
Are you just making
the name,
words up? That's the name of it?
I'm sure someone will point it in the comments. It's a long word. That's why,
Okay,
I tend to remember short words, not the long ones,
No longer than 4 or 5 letters.
Make it 3.
Yes. So, and Martin says, for great accuracy, use a spot meter.
Spot meter. That's the thing. And I tend to, that's the thing. When you're using spot meter, generally, I tend to measure either for midtones or shadow areas because I like that slightly overexposed, dreamy look with my portrait film.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people tend to shoot portraits. They tend to shoot it, let's say, one stop, let's say overexposed, etc. So, but it's always, of course, depends on lighting conditions. So, but spot metering is the way to go, definitely.
Yes. Thank you, Jeremy, for your contribution to the Coffee Fund as well. I mean, I would say, I just got a little wave of comments there. The film boxes used to have pictures inside summarizing it. There you go, Paul. Thank you. And Andy also said the same thing. The cheat sheet used to be packed into Kodak film. Are you Googling
Light reciprocity.
Ah.
That's the word.
Okay. That's a big word. Yes, I can understand why. So that means that when you're shooting at nighttime, you have to add an extra...
Yeah, there's a formula for this, and it's generally each stock should have its own curve, so you can go on the manufacturer's website and find this information.
Yes.
So generally, you get a calculator out, and you say, if I use 6 seconds at this time, how much I need to add. So you multiply it and it gives you the exposure time.
That's right. There you go. And everybody was saying reciprocity.
Reciprocity, exactly.
Thank you for that. So for Jeremy does something similar kind of to what I do, actually. He said, I use film types as an indication of the weather. It's FP4 in Cornwall today. I'm hoping for PanF tomorrow. I love that.
What's the weather like today? It's FP4.
and then you're like, the guy in the cafe doesn't know what you're talking about. Your barista gives you a confused look.
It's a Kodak Gold. Is it golden now? No, it's Kodak Gold. Yeah.
That's right. But I used to think to myself, it's an ISO 400 day or it's an ISO 160, depending on what film I wanted to shoot.
Generally, if you want to be on the safe side, 800, Kodak Portrait 800 or Cine Steel 800, let's say 800 ISO would be the film to get that probably will be usable during the day and at nighttime as well.
Yeah.
If you're generally shooting during the day, again, on the safe side is 400, especially if you don't have, let's say, really wide open lenses like 1.4 lenses like 35-1.4, for example. But if you've got those nice lenses like 35-1.4 and you don't want to use ND filters, get a 100 or 200 ISO film. Yeah,
okay. Good, thank you. Whereas John says, as a photojournalist in the early, I'm guessing 1970s as opposed to 1070s, otherwise that was an awful long time ago, we were given 100-foot rolls, and I shot a huge amount of shots that never used a meter, Nikon F, figured out how to expose correctly by sight. If we were in a low light position, we would push the development time and or raise the temperature of the developer and agitated the film a lot. So
Okay, well, why
won't
won't you tell us about pushing and pulling the film then? Since
Yeah,
it kind of
will.
leads to that.
Yeah, I will, absolutely. Please do give us a like, by the way. We've been running, we are going to run a little bit longer because we have more things to say and we had an intermission. Not massively long, but just a few more minutes.
I'll need to be at home by 7. It should be okay, isn't it?
It'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Okay.
Yes, I will do that. That's brilliant. Thank you. So in terms of pushing and pulling film,
Yeah, it sounds fancy, but actually
it's super simple.
it's super simple.
Is you take the film stock. So let's say you're shooting with, I wouldn't necessarily do this with Portra, but if you shoot Portra at a higher ISO, so you basically tell the camera that instead of shooting 160, you're actually shooting 400. That's a lot. I wouldn't do that. Okay, my example is I had 400 Japan Camera Hunter, right? I had 400 ASA JCH.
And you shot it, what, at 200? Or?
And I shot it at 200 because it was super bright and sunny. So I pulled it basically. Or if you told the camera instead you were shooting with 800 ISO film, then you would push it. Now the main thing, the reason for doing this is that it gives you an entirely different look to your film. It might make it more contrasty, it might make it less contrasty. I did an entire live stream on this last year in lockdown. So if you find that interesting, you can go and have a look at that. It's
Sounds like fun.
from my home office, yeah. But I will say you have to tell your developer, if you're not developing it yourself, you have to tell them. You have to write it on the canister or actually put the instructions because the developing time is the thing that makes.
So it's either you add developing time or you take it away.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Exactly.
I remember I was shooting HP5. I think instead of 400, I would push to 1600 ISO and would give me this really nice film grain. So and again for night type of shooting, I think I was shooting lots of protests in New York at the time, and it would give me this really nice look.
Yeah. Exactly. So and then there's other things you can do with film, like adding filters. Obviously, the kind of colored filters don't work with digital cameras, but they work well with film cameras. I was just trying to think of film colors.
You got the different colored, red, green, and all this, and that would
Yellow.
affect. I never use them, so I don't have experience with them. But because I never shot black and white landscapes, but
No, but it's quite fun to shoot. For example, very cloudy skies with a red filter because it gives you that really deep
so it gives
contrast.
you like okay.
It's
Sounds
like
good.
very white clouds and very dark shadows. It's quite cool. What else did we want to talk about? Is that everything? Did we cover everything? Where we talked about where to develop?
Yes, we can talk about scanning if you want. We can talk about printing in the darkroom if you want.
We can briefly mention scanning. Nikon did make some great scanners. It's a shame that they're discontinued. It's very sad. But instead, they have their little gizmos, the ES1 and the ES2. ES2, if you're digitizing 35mm and slides. If you are just doing slides, then it's the ES1. To be honest, if you've got very thick mounted slides, they don't fit well in the ES2, so then you're better off having an ES1 anyway.
Well, I shot film strips with, copied film strips with the ES1. It's not as good because obviously you need to flatten it a little bit,
Yes.
but it technically works.
And you have to just make sure you don't scratch the film with the clips.
There's a whole thing about digitizing your negatives with the DSLRs. I personally don't think it gives the best results. I still think that proper scanning, obviously we can talk about drum scans, and that's the most expensive way of scanning your negatives, but you'll get the best results. But if you're really into film, and especially if you shoot different formats like 35 and 120, definitely it's worth picking up a Coolscan 9000, which is going for about £3,000 on eBay nowadays.
Yeah, they're expensive now.
You can have a look at for Imacon scanners. Those used to be £25,000
There's
back
also,
in the day.
I mean, the cheaper ones like Plus Tech, for example.
Those are good. They're not as good as let's say as the Nikon ones. But also, yes, if you're shooting a lot of 35mm film, then Coolscan 5000 is the one I would recommend. There's a Coolscan 5, which technically is really good but slow. 5000 should speed up the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, scanning generally is I would say, slightly quicker process, particularly if you've got one of those I need coffee now.
You don't speak English
I've hit
today?
that time of day where it's just like brain turns off.
So now you are buffering.
I'm buffering. The holder thing, The thingy that we put in our scanner.
Okay, so
Film
flatbed
holder.
scanners come with film holders. So Epson, the current one, the top scanner is V850.
Yes.
The one we have in the shop is V600. It also does scanning, so I think up to 6x6
That's right.
negatives.
Jeremy just mentioned that V600 actually. Yeah, we have
There you
that
go.
one.
That's the one we have in the shop. So when we develop our film, we don't order contact sheets because we are cheap and we prefer to scan ourselves. So, but again, this gives you a good idea what it's going to look like. But obviously for the keepers, I would say, for the ones that you want to put in your portfolio, let's say,
Yeah.
then you definitely want to scan them properly. So generally, yeah, I found the cheapest drum scan for 6x7 I found is £14 and somewhere in Scotland. So that's an interesting one. You can also get your negative scans with Imacon scanners that are considered to be the second best scanners. And those for 6x7 is about 10 to 11 pounds. For 35mm film, it's a little bit less.
If you do pick up one of those older Nikon scanners, then you can use the software ViewScan. Obviously, the Nikon scanners were discontinued before we had such things like Windows 10 and onwards. So operating systems aren't compatible with the old cool scans anymore, but ViewScan is the way around it. Martin said you could probably do a whole session on black and white filters for film. I actually did one last year. Before the days of the Con and Becky show, when I was doing the streams from my home office. So if that's of interest, you can go and check that out.
Before when it was actually good.
No, it was different.
It's different.
I was mostly, because there were only maybe 30, 40 people watching at that time at the most. So I always felt like it was just me having a conversation with a handful of people. Now it's a little bit more of a bigger scale. Sometimes we have like 300 or 400 people watching us. I always find that slightly surreal. David said something lovely. He said, keep it simple. As Paul Simon said so very well, Kodachrome and a Nikon camera.
Yes, I would love to get some Kodachrome.
Yes. In fact, we've got a roll of Kodachrome in the fridge downstairs that I've been saving. It expired in 1994 or 92. I don't know if it would work. Where would you get it developed? That's the thing.
There are places that still develop them.
Do they?
Yeah. Is there a thing which is called Ektachrome as well, which renders everything pink?
Yeah, I think so.
It's as well as discontinued film. I also want to try that. It's fun.
Just to make it look, everything looks super pink. I shot with a roll of very expired Fuji, can't remember what it was, and it was expired and hadn't been kept in the fridge, and everything was red and green.
Well, remember the stream we did on F6? That's what I used. Yeah, it was in the Arctic, so nice and hot. For about 12 years.
Yes. There were a few people who were mentioning what do you do with an ES1, ES2. Okay, so the ES1 and ES2 close focusing distance is so short that you need a 60mm macro, or if you've got a Z camera, then use Z 50mm macro. The 105 doesn't focus close enough, can't use that one, whether you're using an F mount or a Z mount. So the way to go is one of the lenses that focuses much closer. I'm going to do a whole review on the 50 and using it with the ES2, probably for Nikon owner in the next issue after the next one. But if you have...
Yeah, sorry, just to interrupt.
Yes.
All you need to know that Becky actually bought one herself.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. So
Therefore,
that's how good the lens is.
I endorse it.
Yes.
That replaces out my 60. Yes. So the ES1 and the ES2 need that close focusing distance. You can pretty much use any camera. It's really down to the lens focusing close. I did get an email from someone the other day who said the 40mm slightly crops the image. So you might need to, but I think there's ways around it. But that's the main thing. And I have to say, thank you very much to Richard for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. Said, got my macro 105 S lens today, get married tomorrow in England for the Euros on Sunday. Brilliant weekend.
Nice.
So congratulations for the big day. And yes, Euros on Sunday excites us greatly. Constantine is an honorary England supporter.
I'm going to have a garden party. We're going to set up a projector.
Nice.
Yes, so we're going to have pizza on one side and Greg's takeaway with some sausage rolls on another side.
That's how to live, isn't it? Yeah. You can't, as Richard said, you can't use the ES2 with the 105 macro, sadly. It has to be the 50 or a 60mm f2.8 of one form or the other. So we talked about filters, talked about copying. I mean, at the moment, what we tend to do is get our stuff developed. We're trying different labs. I think it's a matter of experimentation. For black and white sort of hand-developed film, I wouldn't go to the cheapest place possible because they could mess it up.
they develop it with vodka because it's cheaper.
Yeah, and then they put their fingerprints all over it,
Exactly.
which is what happened to me.
It's like, let's remove the water.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are kind of, let's say, using or shooting with treasured film, treasured images, then maybe go to a decent developer.
If you can get stuff locally, then that's probably the best way. Now, if you're in London, everything is like 3-4 times the price.
Yeah.
So for us here, we tend to use mail order, which so far worked really well. But again, if it's, let's say, a commercial shoot, I probably wouldn't send my film by post. I would probably take it somewhere locally.
I'd be scared.
Exactly. So, but you can find in UK, I think what we developed last our film, $3.99 per roll.
Yeah, which was amazing because I'd paid £15 the previous time.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a few places. Robbie's Photographic do it. Ray says Rapid Eye for film development. I don't know if that's in the UK or not. There was a developing place in East London called the Artful Dodgers.
Well, Aperture Photographic develops film in London as well. They're in Museum Street.
That's right. Aperture, that's correct. Aperture do develop. And obviously there's those recommended list of places on Analog Wonderland as well. Thank you, Adam, for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. I think we're going to, shall we do our Wheel of Names competition?
Yeah, sure.
Is it that time of day?
Absolutely. Let me remove this. You're not going to get this.
No, sorry, that's mine.
But whoever wins it is going to get a tumbler, 24-70.
Yeah, it won't have a lens in it, but it will have a lens that looks like a 24-70. I mean, a mug that looks like
Well,
a 24.
you can imagine that you have the lens.
If you put it in your cupboard next to your other lenses, you won't be able to see a difference. It's very well made. Right, let me get to the Wheel of Names. Let's hope that it works. I just realized that, can I share my screen? Digital. Okay, can you hear me now? Yes, you can. Sorry for that moment. I realized that I hadn't, with the interference, I hadn't set up the microphone on the screen capture. So you get to all see your names now. All right, you ready? Who is it gonna be? It's oh God, it's really
Team Ryan.
It's Tim. Well done, Tim. Very well done. So you get that. Drop us, not that. We won't send you coffee with it because it might be a bit messy. But if you drop us an email with your details to media@graysofwestminster.co.uk, then we'll get that sent to you. Roy asked if you develop your film in coffee.
Always.
Every time.
If I want a sepia look, then I would definitely develop it in coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Quite a few people recommending places to go for developing film. We hope that you feel inspired by today's live stream. Thank you so much for joining us, for bearing with us today. Technical difficulties aside, it has actually been great fun.
Yeah. Next time we'll use dial-up, isn't it?
We'll use dial-up internet, the most reliable ever.
5 kilobytes a second.
Well, actually, next week I'm going to be alone, aren't I?
Oh, yes.
Maybe I'll just live stream from my phone.
I'm going to be enjoying the sun, hopefully, somewhere else.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And then it will be the con show the week after.
And it's going to be me then, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. While we work our holidays out. But anyway, thank you so much for all of your contributions to the Coffee Fund, for your inputs this week. I will see you next week for another live stream. Have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week.